Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our call. My name is Frank Varon, and I'm very happy to greet you from the beautiful tropical Caribbean island of St. Martin, way south of the United States, 1,250 miles southeast of the southernmost point of our country, which is Key West, in a beautiful nowhere, in the middle of nowhere, an archipelago of islands known as the Windward Islands, the Lesser Antilles, the Dutch West Indies, or if you want to go to the other side of this island, which is French, it's the French West Indies. But any way you look at it, it's a beautiful place to live, and I want to welcome everyone, especially our guests this evening, and thank you for joining us from all over Canada and the United States. And a quick introduction of myself. I'm a 61-year-old former executive, and I was the CEO of 9 companies, traditional companies, over a 27-year traditional career. 2 of those companies were over 3,000 employees, so I was a relatively busy fellow. And I sold my last company in the spring of 1999. I was introduced to this industry in the fall of '99 and joined it in the spring of 2000. So I was introduced to the industry 17 years ago. Over the last 17 years, I've been active 13 years, primarily with 2 companies. This will be the 3rd. And in those 13 years, this miraculous industry has created an 8-figure income for my family and myself and allowed us to live truly a spectacular and wonderful life. And I hope I can influence you this evening to at least take the time to look at what we do and understand the freedom and the joy that comes from this industry. I have 4 children. My 2 older boys are hiking and exploring in Chengdu, China. My daughter is on the beaches of the Riviera right now. My youngest son is gallivanting in Montreal, Canada. So again, you know, and then of course they love to be here. It's a wonderful lifestyle that this industry provides, and that's what I'm going to try to share with you this evening. We're going to be talking about this company, Varon, and we're going to do some very simple analysis. We call this Business 101. We're going to do a simple analysis of the company to determine its credibility. And these are fundamentals, folks. I didn't invent any of this. This is really as basic as it gets, really 101. We're going to look at the history of the company, and then we're going to look at the industry that the company is positioned in. We'll look at the history of the industry and the future of the industry, and that's what determines timing. And we all know how important timing is in business. So let's go ahead and apply these criteria to Varon and see what the reveal is. History of the company. We don't really have one. We're a newborn baby, still in diapers, 8 months old, and yet in these 8 months, this infant of a company has already broken almost, several records in the 100-year-old $100 billion industry called relationship marketing. We'll come back to that in a minute. So what do you do in the absence of a traditional company history? Well, you look at the principles, you look at ownership, and you look at the history of ownership. What have they done? What have they accomplished? And that presents actually a very interesting story. So we're going to go right back to 1990. A group of friends sitting in the living room with a scientist formed a company called USANA. And USANA would go out in the first 12 months out of the living room and do $1 million of business, which is remarkable. I mean, to me, it's remarkable, starting a brand new company out of your home and doing $1 million. And this is in 1990, folks, 27 years ago. Absolutely remarkable. And that company would continue to grow. Today, USANA does in excess of $1 billion per year. $1 billion per year. So the first attempt at this industry turned into a multi-billion-dollar success. The second one became world famous. It was about 12 years ago, a company called Monavi, which would reach $100 million in only 16 months, $1 billion in only 5 years, not 27 years, 5 years, and would pay out an extraordinary almost $1.8 billion to the participants of that company, and would go on and become world famous. So 2 massive successes, and yet the third is, what do they say, 3 is the charm? and in the fall of last year, the declaration of the third and final program and company for ownership, and that this company would be a legacy company. Now, what does that mean? What is a legacy company? A legacy company has in its constitution that it will never be sold and may never be taken public, will never go to the stock exchange. It's going to remain in control of ownership and, of course, the participants in the company. We're the ones who are going to direct the future and the success. So from inception, from day one, this company was designed to flourish for many decades to come. You know, their companies have been involved in our industry for 70, 80 years, doing billions of dollars a year. That's exactly where Varon is going to go, and we're well underway. So I think if we take a look and evaluate ownership, again, in absence of the traditional company history, I'm going to give 3 massive gold stars to this company and its credibility. So much so, folks, that Varon has already attracted some of the most important successful veterans in the industry, because everyone wants to hitch up to a company that's going to be around for decades. You know, I'm doing this not only for my children, but my future grandchildren and great-grandchildren, a true legacy, and we have that opportunity with Varon. So now let's move on to the industry to talk about the timing, and to do that we have to go and take a look at the history, going right back to 1950. 1950, when scientists discovered the human genome, only 2 nanometers wide. What is a nanometer? It's a millionth of a millimeter. They're so tiny it's ridiculous. You can't even see it. I mean, you know, a very powerful electron microscope to be able to see this little speck that represents the universe within us, the double helix, the X and the Y, incredible. Absolutely incredible. In fact, it was so complicated, it would take 40 years before scientists were smart enough, electron microscopes powerful enough, and computers fast enough to be able to analyze the universe, this miraculous universe that exists within every human being. And so they decided to map the human genome, which took almost a decade and a half, and of course led to DNA, which we can attribute to every crime movie. and especially now what we see often in the commercials these days, we see these commercials, wonderful presents to give people, 23andMe, Ancestry.com, take a look and find out what your heritage is and what countries your ancestors came from. You know, when you think about it, it's extraordinary. The hundreds of millions of dollars, the scientists and the research centers and the laboratories and universities and the hundreds of thousands of hours invested to map the human genome, and it turns into an absolutely wonderful and very clever present for a birthday or for Christmas. So technology enthralls me. And so it also led to the science of genetics, and you would have to look very far and wide to find something in the world today that has not been affected by the science of genetics, and yet it's just the beginning. Because the future is about miniaturization. The tinier it is, the better. You can look this up on Google because, you know, we talk about what this science is bringing to the world, and some of it sounds like it's out of a science fiction movie. You know, something that's going to happen 20 years from now, but it's happening right now. In fact, the future's rocketing into us at about 100,000 miles an hour. USC, Riverside, University of Southern California, Riverside, scientists just months ago were able to take carbon nanotubes, and I'm not sure what they are, but when there's something to do with nanotechnology, these carbon nanotubes, and they embedded them into the leaves of spinach plants, which then allowed the spinach plants, you can't make this up, folks, to detect explosives. You cannot make this up. This happened. If you look it up, Google, USC Riverside, spinach, explosives. Do that Google search, it'll come up. And so they took carbon nanotubes, and now you have bomb-sniffing spinach. This is the future. They're talking about putting 10,000 computers on the head of a pin. Why would they do that? Well, because they're going to create something called, and they're doing it now, nanobots. Nanobots, these submicroscopic robots that they'll be able to inject into our body, and these robots will go zooming through our body looking for the bad guys, like cancer cells, and destroy them. The future is upon us, folks, and it's coming at us so fast it's unbelievable. And we're part of it. Baseo is part of it because we're all about something called liposomes. Now, what is a liposome? A liposome is the smallest bubble in the world. It's 350 nanometers in diameter, 350 millionths of a millimeter. Hard to conceive of how tiny that is, except, here, I'll give you a hint. If you took 25,000 of them and stacked them side by side, it would not be a millimeter, if you can conceive of something that tiny. And so what do we do with these submicroscopic bubbles? Well, we have 5 formulas that we've brought to the world that we put into these bubbles. I'll explain to you why we're doing it. Let me tell you first about the 5 formulas. It's called MicroLife. It's under the banner MicroLife. And the 5 formulas we have one called Sleep. Guess what that does? And by the way, folks, these are all allergy-free. They're everything free, pharmaceutical grade, all organic, all natural, everything good, right? So Sleep has wonderful things in it like melatonin and valerian. And so they put that wonderful formula in these tiny bubbles. And as you can imagine, it works wonderfully. You spray it under your tongue, and in my case, 10 minutes later, I'm snoozing away. And then we have energy. Well, that's another clever one. But this is not about those skinny cans or those little bottles that cost $5 at the gas station that make you jump out of your skin. None of that caffeine, guaran, or whatever that other stuff is making you nuts. This is just about clarity. My daughter is an auditor for Deloitte Touche, and she looks at monitors and numbers all day long, and sometime mid-afternoon she'll get a little, fuzzy, couple of sprays under her tongue, and as she says, Dad, clarity comes back to me. Well, I can tell you the same thing works for me. Of course, I'm 61, so every day without numbers or monitors, I get a little dopey-headed in the middle of the afternoon. Couple of sprays, and again, this is not about caffeine. This is not about having a cup of coffee. It's all about clarity. It's almost as if colors and everything come back. It's wonderful. That's energy. Then we have Renew. Renew is an anti-inflammatory, anti-aging formula that is creating nothing short of, extraordinary results. The testimonials we're getting are borderline miraculous on some of the folks. I mean, we have everything from super athletes and Olympians using it post-workout to recover from torn muscles, et cetera, to folks that have been suffering from chronic pain and who get wonderful results with it. Again, thousands of testimonials coming out on a regular basis. And then we have core essentials, basics, right? Vitamins and minerals that everybody in the world needs and doesn't get right now from our food supply, especially minerals, which have been farmed out of the soil 100 years ago, right? And so we put those back into the food chain, back into our body, and the body reacts immediately. And then we have one called Neuro. That's our sexiest product. It's brain food. Brain food so that you can provide nutrition to the most important organ of your body. So these are all wonderful formulas, and we put them into these submicroscopic bubbles. And now why do we do that? Because of our revolutionary delivery system. I'm going to do my layman's best to explain this to you. Of course, those of you that are keen on science, please, I'll encourage you to go to vaseo.com, VASAYO.com, where you will find an incredible library of information on our technology and the revolutionary delivery system that we offer the world. Here's my layman's best. For years, I took very expensive items. I had to send in a swab, and they were custom blended to my DNA. Cost me $120 a month, $4 a pill. Every morning I took one in the hopes that it was doing something, because why else would I spend $4 for one pill? In the hopes that it was doing something. Only recently I found out that anything that goes into my mouth and into my stomach, and the acid in my stomach and my digestive system only allows 15 to 18% penetration on a cellular level, which is, of course, why I took it in the first place, of my body, only 15 to 18%. Now, I could have improved those results dramatically by going to my doctor and allowing him to stick needles into my veins and injecting me with vitamin K, A, C, B, D, whatever, all of them, right, B's, the multi-B's. I could have done that, but, you know, and it's not that I'm squeamish about needles, but there's got to be a better way to do it, right? Well, there is a better way to do it, because direct injections is not 15 to 18%, it's 65 to 70%. But liposomes are miraculous. And so I give you an example. Middle of the afternoon, I want that clarity. I spray something under my tongue. The liposomes are so tiny they pass right through my skin, right through the membranes, into my bloodstream, flying millions of these little tiny bubbles zooming through my body. And when they come across a cell, instead of the cell defending itself, which it normally would be, the miracle of the liposome is the skin of it, which is designed to tell the cell that the liposome is friendly. So the cell, instead of going, you ain't coming in, the cell goes, oh, we like you, hey, we're having a party, come on in. And so it's able to pass right through the skin of the cell, which is the mitochondria, into the cell and deposit the nutrient directly into the cell. At what percentage? Not at 15 to 18%, not at 65 to 70%, but over 80%. Painlessly, folks. And actually, they're actually very tasty as you spray them under your tongue. Painlessly. It's revolutionary. There's nothing like it in the world, and the results are spectacular. So again, that's my best at explaining how this stuff works. Please visit Vaseo.com, and you'll get a lot more information from all the scientists and not from the businessman. However, the businessman does want to come back for the last couple of minutes and talk to you about the income opportunity. You know, wonderful things have happened already, and it's published in the press. In our first month, if you remember, I talked about 27 years ago, USANA did $1 million in the first 12 months. $1 million in the first 12 months. Well, as reported in the press, we did $12 million in the first month. Not $1 million in 12 months, but $12 million in 1 month. That's a clue. That's definitely a clue. As these companies, as new companies launch, as they come into being and they start their business, generally what they do is they'll have a meet and greet. You know, they'll have a gathering where the people that are going to participate in this new company get together and do a face-to-face, and how do you do, and look forward to working with you. And about 10 years ago, one of the biggest, and we're not talking about a convention, we're talking about a pre-launch kickoff event, meet and greet. About 700 people showed up about 10 years ago, and that was an industry record. Well, we did one in May in Las Vegas, and not 700, but 6,500 people gathered together to do a meet and greet. 6,500, an industry record, 100-year, $100 billion industry, our industry record. And we've had tens of thousands of new members and new participants and new brand partners, and that's how we're known, new brand partners that have joined us in only the first few months. Folks, these are all clues. And we've done all of this in the United States and Canada, and we're just starting. Again, you know, this is just the beginning, and it's the theme of this call. We've only just begun. You know, we're expanding now into Asia. We just opened up the offices in Hong Kong 10 days ago, and we're going to do further expansion to Asia, multiple countries over the next few years with a spectacular expectation of growth, and we don't really have to look very far. Remember that second company I talked to you about, MonaV, the one that reached $100 million in 16 months and $1 billion in 5 years? Well, we have people that were involved with that company from day one. Day one. And they're with us today, and they're saying it's happening much, much faster here. Now, unfortunately, I was not involved with that former company. I wish I had been. However, I do know one thing for certain. We're at the very beginning. And most people think that that's the best time to be involved in this type of industry. It's actually not true, but if that's what you believe, that's fine. We are at the very beginning because tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands and ultimately millions of people will be joining Vaseo over the next few years. In my personal and professional opinion, this is not a corporate adage. This is from me. My estimable opinion, having been, someone who came out with a master's degree and worked on Wall Street and, again, CEO, and I've analyzed thousands of companies throughout my career, there is no question in my mind, no doubt, that Viseo will become and is on its way to becoming a multi-billion-dollar multinational and will change the fortunes and the futures of hundreds of thousands of families, and that can include your family as well. Throughout my career, I've met so many people that said, if only I had one opportunity, if only I had, known about Microsoft or Google or Amazon and I'm not making an analogy here, or not trying to draw a parallel, but the idea is that something spectacular is going to happen, and these people wished that they had been at the beginning. And I think we all do. We'd love to have the winning numbers for the Powerball, right? When is that? Was that last night? I missed it. I never played the lottery anyway. Right? Everybody would like to have the winning lottery ticket. Folks, if you're on this call tonight, you're being handed the winning lottery ticket. Now, what do you need to do to ensure that that happens? You need to do what we call due diligence. Nobody's trying to convince you to do anything tonight. All we're trying to do is tell you something spectacular is taking place, and you can participate if you choose to. So the next step is for you to take a look at the website, get together with the person that invited you to come onto this call. And again, I want to thank all the many guests that have joined us this evening from across North America. And I see a couple of VoIP callers, which means we have folks calling in from Asia early in the morning, tomorrow morning, 9:23 tomorrow morning. Welcome everyone, by the way, to our call this evening. And so to take advantage of the information that's being presented, go to Viseo.com, click on Opportunity, look at all the events that are taking place all across the United States and Canada, the webinars that take place every night, these conference calls that are hosted every Tuesday and Thursday, and that will become, as we enter into September and one of the peak periods of our industry, that's going to become 5 nights a week, and we'll have daytime calls as well. We have lots of information. We have Facebook team pages. We have newsletters that go out on a daily basis. We have WhatsApp groups so that everybody knows what's going on. And invite the people you know and love to listen to this opportunity. That's all we want them to do, because I'm absolutely certain, folks, that if you take the time to understand what's taking place, if you can see what we now see, you will be as excited as we are about the future and what it can do for your family and your family's family. Keep that in mind, and with that, I am going to sign off from the beautiful island of St. Martin. I want to thank you all for joining me this evening. Again, my name is Frank Varon, and I wish everyone a good night and God bless.